Hello and welcome back to Yarn Y'all. Today is March 1st, which is a Friday. I spent the morning running errands and enjoying the cool sort of spring-like weather we're having. It's actually gotten up to about 70 degrees today, but previous to today we had a cold front where it was in the 60s, I want to say 50s and 60s, which is actually quite cold for Texas. So I'm wearing a hoodie, which is really cozy and probably one of the last times I'll have the opportunity to wear something warm. And that being said, even though we don't have a lot of weather that calls for warm weather or cool weather apparel, I still plan to make a lot of sweaters and things, and I'm very excited to be continuing my knitting journey. But without further ado, I'd love to get in and show you guys some of the finished objects that I accomplished. We'll start with one that I worked on while we were waiting for Pearl to arrive, and then I'll show you guys the Frosted Bloom, which I actually did basically finish. I finished all of the crocheting on it before leap date. I guess it was the 28th, so even if it wasn't a leap year, I still would have finished it before the end of the month. I'm very glad about that. Even though I do have a lot of ends to weave in, I'm counting it as finished because weaving in ends is not the same as crocheting in my world. And so already starting to think about what other project I want to start next. And since I haven't gotten much feedback from y'all on what y'all would like to see in terms of dolls, I think my next starting project will actually be another knitting item, but I'll talk about that later. For now, let's check out the candy blanket from Siren's Crochet. Okay, this is the candy blanket by Siren Crochet. She has a YouTube channel and it's primarily pattern design. You're mostly seeing footage of her crocheting and not really anything else. I want to say she's possibly from Turkey, although I've not researched that at all, but she does a lot of free designs and she has the most lovely accent. I'm not major into ASMR, but her voice is very soothing in my opinion, and I could just have her playing in the background. Like, it's just a very relaxing experience. So this is her design. There's nothing really fancy about it. It's just a shell stitch that has so many double crochets in each section here. It's a free pattern, so I don't mind talking about it, but that it gives like a puff or a three-dimensional shell to it, and then on the opposite side you have a very similar texture. With this being as textured as it is, this blanket was a slog. I want to say before Pearl arrived and I started thinking about like, what do I need to do to get ready for her, I maybe had like this much done, and obviously the blanket is a bit bigger than that. It's not a huge blanket, but it is, decent sized flat blanket. And while I'm glad to have it, I will say I am never doing this pattern again just because of the amount of time that went into it. It's just not my style to stick with a blanket pattern for that long. The other thing is that I was gifted this variegated gray yarn. I want to say it was just a Caron Simply Soft acrylic yarn. And while it's beautiful and I walk by it at the store and I see it and it's got this like shine to it that is hard to explain, I'm never buying it again. It was a disaster to work with for me. Other people might feel differently, but for me it was just troublesome because the yarn itself is very loosely plied, and I don't know if it's because I'm left-handed or because I was pulling from the center, but as I was pulling it from the center, it felt like the plies were like untwisting, and that just made it even harder to work with. And I found that if I cut it and wound it in the opposite direction, I didn't have that problem as much, but it just was really fussy to work with, and very thankful to have this blanket done. It's nice to have it around, but I can't say I recommend the yarn. I do love the pattern though, and I cannot rave about Siren enough. I love listening to her. She's wonderful. So anyway, that's this item. On to the frosted bloom blanket. She's done. I mean, as done as she was going to be for this point in the month. We actually finished everything on Leap Day, which was yesterday. Today is March 1st, and I thought I'd sit down and film some, but we have ends to weave in, and that is all. My friend decided she did not want a fringe on the border, so there's no fringe, but there's a slip stitch all the way around, which gives a nice thick border here. And I just love the textural elements that this blanket incorporates. This really pretty green band is actually Tunisian crochet, which is so cool. Everything else is traditional crochet. Both my husband and I really love this white textured band here. There's just something so cool about that linen column texture going on there. So happy with the final result. Now just a bajillion ends to weave in. I always love this round. It makes me think of flowers. Like obviously they're upside down from where you're at, but yeah. Little, I don't know, tulips on the top of that green cluster. Just a really amazing blanket. So grateful to be done with it, and also really enjoyed working on it and satisfied with the final result. So here it is. Okay, so that is pretty much all of my finished objects. On to our whips. As of right now, I only have one whip because, well, that's not true. I have my caterpillar whip that I talked about last time, but I haven't done anything to it since last we spoke, and so I'm not even going to bother showing it to you guys. But I have made some more progress on my mom's shirt. So you can see in the back here, we have our llama stitch marker and the progress made since then. So not a lot, but like 10 rows maybe. Like I said, my primary focus this past week was that frosted bloom blanket. I'm so thankful to have it done, especially because I was starting to get like some muscle issues related to that, and I know that that's always a sign to take a break from a particular hobby. So I'm glad that it's finished, and I am so excited to be working on the Cascada tee. I just think it's a beautiful yarn. I did try it on. These are actually interchangeable needles that I'm using, and so I added additional cord length and tried it on a couple days ago, and it is looking so cool. I cannot wait to see this washed and blocked, and I just love the material that is working up with this. Like it's beautiful. I mean, it's very unique because you have this linen lace yarn running through it, and then you've got the superwash sock yarn. But I am just anticipating seeing the finished object and seeing how the fabric drapes and softens, because I do know that linen does soften when it is washed and worn more. So yeah, super excited about this. I will keep you guys posted on how that goes, and that's pretty much all I've been working on. I'm thinking I'm kind of torn between what I'll start next, so hold tight, let me show you. Okay, so I feel like I would be queue jumping if I started working on this, because this is the most recent yarn that I've brought into my yarn stash. It is Hawthorne from Knit Picks. It is Northern, I think it's called Northern Lights. I've told you guys about this. North Star kettle dye fingering weight Hawthorne yarn, and it is squishy and beautiful, and I can't wait to start turning this into something. However, this is the newest yarn into my stash, and so I feel like it would be queue jumping if I start working on this. This is going to become a sweater for my husband. It's going to be a lightweight sweater using the Coziest Life Ever pattern package, which has the Coziest Husband sweater, I believe is what it's called, and the Coziest Wife. So I'll link those patterns below. I bought mine as a bundle, and I cannot wait to turn this into something for him. However, like I said, this would be queue jumping. The other thing I'm thinking about making is with this yarn, which I got from Hobby Lobby when it was on clearance. It is authentic hand-dyed blend tie-dye. It is superwash merino wool and lyocell, I think that's how that's pronounced. But it is got a nice squish to it. It is a beautiful tie-dyed yarn. I think this colorway, oh, it's just called tie-dye. Nothing fancy to it. So this is the skein. This is what it looks wound up. Very pretty yarn, very colorful. So I'm not sure if I'm in the mood for something colorful or something a little bit more muted. I think we're gonna go with colorful just because this has been languishing in my stash for quite some time. So this I also am still kind of up in the air because I can just do this single and find a pattern that will go with it, probably a tank or a t-shirt pattern, or I can take my linen yarn cone that I'm using in my mom's shirt, wind off a significant amount of this and maybe hold this double. It would mellow out this tie-dye look a bit, I think, but I don't know if I want to do that. It will give me a DK weight versus a fingering, so it just kind of depends on the pattern that I decide to go with. And that, I don't know, I feel like using some different needles, not my interchangeables, and my mother-in-law gave me some Chow-Goos, and I have a 3 and a 4. So is it weird that I'm picking a pattern based on the needles I want to use? That's kind of where I'm at right now. So yeah, these are the things I'm working on. I haven't cast anything on because I don't want to like start something and then regret it. Plus I've been kind of busy this past week, and yeah, just haven't started anything new yet. And truthfully, the Frosted Blooms, although it's done, like I mentioned before, still has ends to weave in. Last night I wanted to get it blocked and everything, so now that it's blocked, I feel like I can breathe a sigh of relief. I only finished it on Wednesday, and then yesterday was Thursday, and I was out running errands. So I will be deciding what I want to start on pretty soon here before I film my next episode, but I just thought I'd pop in and show you guys what I accomplished. Okay, so here we are on March 4th, and I'm uploading today, but I realize I have very little content to share with you, and since recording, I had actually given a lot more thought to what I wanted to start, and thought before I uploaded I would share what I did decide to start. Is that proper grammar? I don't know. Luke, my husband, is out with Pearl. They just went out to the garage to play, so I have a few minutes to chit chat with you guys. And I kind of knew this about myself when I started podcasting, and just watching other podcasters say the same thing, but I think I am an external processor, and so just from Thursday to today, thinking more about what I wanted to cast on next and what project I had bookmarked and what materials I had available to me, I decided to cast on the Slavette t-shirt. I think that's what it's called. It's a free pattern by the same publisher, I guess, as the Cascada tee. I'll link that in the show notes, but I am definitely going to be modifying it. The problem with these patterns is that there's really only 3 sizes, and I really don't know how true to size they are in terms of like what the ease and drape is going to look like with the materials that I'm using. So like for my mom's t-shirt, the Cascada tee, I'm using a wool with a linen, and I think that's gonna have enough stretch and flex that even if we're off a little bit in terms of fit, like it'll still work out great for her. Whereas this project that I'm casting on, I'm not confident in how it's gonna go for two reasons. The first is that it is a bottom-up construction, and so there's not really like a try on as you go option. And I mean, I know like it will fit around my body, but I don't know. I guess I don't know. This is my very first bottom up construction in a shirt, and so I'll let you know how it goes as we get there. But I have already decided to make some changes. I cast on the second size, I believe, and determined that I just didn't really like the idea of having something that loose, and it has you cast on and do 1x1 rib, and I just am not a huge fan of 1x1 rib, and so decided to do a 3x1. And as I was going around, I remembered that I don't actually I'm like having all these epiphanies as I'm making it, so there's lots of inconsistency already. I should probably show you guys what I'm talking about. But I did decide to do the 3x1 before I even started the rib, but I decided I know that I don't like the way that purl stitches look when they're in ribbing. At least I don't like the way mine look, I should say. And so and you can see there's like necessary changes that happened with the ribbing. But, and by necessary changes, I mean I made mistakes, or maybe I just cast on loosely, or maybe, I'm not sure. Still a new knitter, right? But anyway, forgot that I just think that the purl stitches in ribbing look gappy to me. And so you can see kind of like, I'm hoping you can see this. So up near the top, it's very loose, and that's a normal purl stitch for me. However, when I was teaching myself to knit, I also realized that it matters which direction you wrap your yarn. And for somebody who is a knitter, like, they know that. I did not know that, and I had to learn trial and error style. And so when I found that out, I, amended my knitting style, and pretty much all of my purl stitches have been done correctly. And I'm left-handed, so I don't know if that makes a difference. I'm also a crocheter that has picked up knitting. So when I'm knitting, it's gonna come up reversed for you guys. But basically, my fabric goes from the right side to the left side, going counterclockwise. And I wrap my yarn clockwise around my needles whenever I'm doing stitches. So to do the purls, the way I'm doing them now, I'm actually wrapping the yarn counterclockwise to do a purl stitch, and that makes a tighter, neater, it's like a twisted purl stitch, I guess. I know that there's a name for it. I just haven't looked into this to find out what it's called. I will say, being left-handed, I'm always questioning patterns and designs. Like in crochet, when you're working around, it is absolutely necessary that you decode what the pattern means when certain designers write things a certain way. So like I made a doll where you do a leg and then you do the other leg and then you connect the legs and continue in the round going from leg to the top. And because of the way that crochet works, I again am moving my material counterclockwise, whereas most crocheters who are right-handed, their material will be going clockwise. Anyway, all that is to say that I'm always suspicious of instructions and how they actually apply to me. And so I'm still learning, and I kind of wish that there was like everything you need to know as a left-handed crocheter type of a book, because I like learning from books, but I have yet to come across anything that actually explains anything in that manner. I've seen tutorials online on YouTube, this is how you do such and such left-handed. But even when I watch those videos, I'm like, they are knitting differently than I am. So I don't know how my knitting is weird, but I know it's weird compared to some people, or maybe they're the ones who are weird left-handed and I'm normal. I don't know. Aren't we all weird in some way? So this is the start I've got on the Servette shirt. And like I said, it's it's a bottom up. I am working this on the cool thing about this pattern is it actually calls for 2 needle sizes. And they're the 2 that I own that my mother-in-law gave me for Christmas. So I've got a US 3 on here right now while I'm working the rib. And I'll switch to a US 4 as the pattern calls for when I get out of the rib section. I am suspicious that I am going to modify this again in terms of the amount of ribbing I do, because the pattern calls for, I believe it's 5 centimeters of ribbing, and then you switch to stockinette and continue to work up, and then you split and do like this triangle situation in the front and back, and it seems like a very simple pattern. However, because I am working with bamboo, I'm working with the Tinsel bamboo yarn I got from Michael's. A friend gave me a gift card there, and I got some double pointed needles, but I was like, I need to use up this gift card because I'm not going to come back here. I don't need anything. I'm not coming back. So use it all up all at once. All that being said is I picked up this 100% Tinsel, which is derived from bamboo. I got it on clearance. I got 2 balls of this. It's just a teal colorway. And I also got a purple. So it's going to be a striped shirt. You guys will see more as I get more progress done. But I figure I'll just use up the entire ball of yarn and then switch over to purple and then rotate back and forth. But it is a 3 light yarn, which I believe makes it a DK weight. And which is actually what the pattern calls for. I didn't swatch. I'm not really too concerned about it because it's just supposed to be a drapey t-shirt. I was thinking about making the Something Force t-shirt, but Knits by Mandy said that she made that t-shirt with, it's actually a tank, but she made that tank with also a bamboo yarn and did not like the way it turned out. So I was like, probably shouldn't make that same shirt, knowing that the end product doesn't lend itself very well to this type of yarn. So anyway, this yarn is really pretty. It's my main complaint is that it's very loosely woven, so I feel like there's a risk for splitting your yarn when you're going in your stitches, so it's not really something that you should work on in the dark, which is why I have all those mistakes at the beginning, is because I was working in the dark and it was super late, but whatever. It's not really, this is just one of those things where I'm practicing and building my skills and my proficiency at a craft, and working through a pattern that I had flagged that I said I wanted to make. So I'm glad that I got this yarn because it was on clearance, and I have a lot of things made out of bamboo derived products that I love. Like I've gotten a pair of socks from Academy. It's just a sports store here in Texas, and their bamboo socks are just the best. My sheets, I'm very picky about sheets. I like a sheet that breathes and that's also soft, and I find that bamboo really does that for me. So I'm curious to see how this is going to knit up and how it lasts and breathes and how easy it is to wear here in the Texas heat. We're 4 days into March and it is already, I think it's probably going to be 80 degrees today. It's overcast, but it is hot. I mean, I went out for a walk with Pearl earlier and already hot. So I think we're going to start to become early birds because we're going to need to be exercising and giving her outdoor stimulation, and we won't be able to do that at 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock in the morning because it'll be too hot by then. So anyway, here I am rambling, but I hope you guys have an amazing week. For those of you who are listening and watching, and And if you want to chat about stuff or point me in the direction of good resources for left-handed people learning to knit, like that would be cool too. And I will catch you guys next time. Peace.